What you're looking at right here is the brand new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra, and honestly, I was a little bit surprised. The redesign looks pretty drastically different from last year's very shiny, very boxy S24 Ultra. So Samsung has some design changes and a bunch of internal features that I'll explain throughout this video. But starting off with the design, of course we're getting a 6.9-inch Quad HD Plus AMOLED display, 120 Hz. The phone comes in 4 colors, being black, silver blue, gray, and white silver. And of course it is titanium as well. The phone is 15 grams lighter than last year, so that's not really super significant, but it's nice to have it a little bit lighter. It's a little bit slimmer as well, and obviously way more round. In fact, I think the design of this looks much less premium in a way than last year's S24 Ultra. Specifically, like, look around the camera, how it's kind of all blacked out there and not shiny. It doesn't look quite the same. Maybe that's just me. Leave a comment if you agree. But otherwise, the Ultra seems to look a little bit more similar to the Plus and the base model S25, kind of unifying the lineup a little bit more. There's still the great anti-reflective Gorilla Armor glass on the front. Hopefully it's a little bit more smudge resistant. Like I think it's called oleophobic layer, kind of got worn off and it's very, very smudgy now from my S24 Ultra, so hopefully it doesn't happen on the 25, but otherwise color matched titanium frame all the way around, so good durability there. Obviously an S Pen on the bottom, USB Type-C, we have our SIM tray there, we have our speaker on the bottom. I'll do a speaker test when I have one in the studio, but talking about what is actually different with this phone, besides just the appearance and the design, there are some differences with the cameras. For one, we now have a 50 megapixel ultra-wide lens instead of 12 megapixels, so if you take a lot of ultra-wide photos, that's going to be great. If you take low-light ultra-wide photos, we should have better pixel binning, so higher quality photos at night. And if you take a lot of macro shots, you should have much better resolution if you're using the ultra-wide lens for macro. Other cameras are pretty much the same as last year, 200 megapixel primary, 10 megapixel 3x telephoto, and 50 megapixel 5x telephoto that goes up to 100x zoom. But unlike the other premium Android phones from Oppo and OnePlus, I did not see any AI generation when you zoomed in, which I think is kind of nice that they're not like pushing that, although it's a cool feature that Oppo and OnePlus do have. If you zoom into 120x, it kind of does like a AI enhancement, almost like an AI generation on the photo you take. That doesn't happen, from what I could tell, on the S25 Ultra. There are also new features like nightography video, which should have better noise removal thanks to the Pro Visual engine on here, doing a double analysis on the noise. It's supposed to be more efficient at identifying static objects in a video and then spending more time on moving objects to minimize the blur. We also have 10-bit HDR video quality, and finally, audio eraser on here, which I think is a cool feature. We see something similar, but it's definitely significantly different on the iPhone. The Pixels have audio eraser. This is done on device, and it does a surprisingly impressive job of delineating the sound and picking out, like, all right, music, animal barking, person talking, and wind noise, or whatever. There's like maybe 7 or 8 different things it can identify, and you can adjust the volume of each of those noises, and then it puts them back together in a final video. So if you wanted to block out wind, block out crowd noise, and focus on a voice, you could do that. If you wanted to block out a voice and just have wind noise on a video, you could totally do that as well. This also has Galaxy Log, so if you're trying to do a lot of editing, you can use Galaxy Log, as well as all of course, the AI stuff, generative edit. Magic Eraser is supposedly getting a little bit better at estimating what the background might be when you remove something. It also removes the shadows now much better than it did before. And all of this, of course, like I said, is being done on device. Personally, I'm a fan of those and any other features I didn't mention. Usually I don't really care as much about, like drawing assist, being able to like doodle something and have it turn into a drawing. Maybe it's fun for kids, but I haven't really found a good use for that. Otherwise, inside the phone, before we get to the AI features, there are some really cool ones on this phone, but inside the phone, what's under the hood, really powering all of that, the Snapdragon 8 Elite chipset. Very happy to see that on here. It's a 3nm chipset, so hopefully we're getting some battery life improvements on here. This is still a 5,000 milliamp hour battery, unlike the OnePlus, which is 6,000. But you know, I think efficiency is really everything. The size of the battery doesn't matter nearly as much as it used to. Really, the way they use the battery makes a big difference with phones. There's 12 gigs of RAM on here, and you can get either 256, 512, or 1 terabyte of storage. Oh, and if you're doing a lot of gaming, which let's be honest, a lot of people buying this phone will be playing a lot of games on here, there is an enlarged vapor chamber. So I think it's 40% larger than it was last year, which I believe was 40% larger than the year before. So cooling should be much better on this. We also have Wi-Fi 7 on here and all the other specs, ultra wideband, stuff like that you would expect on a phone of this tier. Okay, so let's get into those 4 big features I was talking about. One is going to be called the Now Brief, and this is something that might sound similar to like a smart stack or something on an iPhone, but it's actually, I would say, quite different. So there are several ways you can use it. It's going to be a widget on your home screen. It's going to be on your lock screen on the bottom as well if you enable that there. And this feels a lot like personally my favorite feature on Garmin watches, as well as on the new Pixel Watch. I talked about it a lot in that video, where it will essentially in the morning give you like a brief of your day. You wake up, you look at that, it'll show you like the weather, the news, the stocks, whatever you choose that you really like to look at. So maybe, for example, like how well you slept, what the weather is, and what's on your calendar. 3 main things that I would want to see pretty much every morning when I get up. And then throughout the day, this will change. Maybe it'll show you things like upcoming flights, anything related to like traffic or navigating, depending on what's on your calendar and what you regularly do throughout the day. And then in the evening, it would be more reflective, kind of like a diary, I believe. So focusing a little bit more on like what you did that day, any photos you took, and kind of winding down and stuff like that. So that is the Now Brief. The Now Bar is kind of the same thing. Like I said, it's showing on the bottom of your lock screen. And that's the one that's going to be a little bit more like, hey, like your favorite team is playing a game in 15 minutes. Here's the channel. Or, hey, your flight's in an hour. Do you want driving directions? Different things like that. That's number 1. Number 2, we have AI agents on here. And let me unpack this. So kind of an example was Circle to Search was really popular last year. Now we have an enhancement in Circle to Search. It now includes audio as well. So if you're watching, I don't know, a video and you want to know what the soundtrack is, you don't need another phone anymore. You can just tap and hold and do a Circle to Search, but tap the little audio button instead of circling. It'll search the audio. Samsung is also adding a similar-ish feature of their own. So if you swipe over from the left, get the nice little panel on the side, tap on what's called AI Select. And AI Select, you might think it's like Circle to Search, but it really isn't. It's actually quite different. So you can select things on your screen and do a number of actions with that. Right now, it's somewhat limited. Like you hit record, you can make a GIF out of like a video, like this video if you wanted to. You could translate things, you could summarize things. So if there's like a screenshot that's not searchable, you could use this feature and search it. But speaking of search, there's also 2 more AI search features on here. So the benefit is speaking in natural language to your phone or typing in natural language and having this search through your photo gallery to find older photos and to search through settings. The settings one I think is a little bit limited. It's great because it can help you find the right settings, but it doesn't really feel quite the way I wanted it to. I would like to have a little sentence, little paragraph there that kind of explains what the setting is, or it just finds settings for you. So it'd be great if it said like, all right, tap on this, type in this or whatever, or even like, hey, this setting doesn't exist, but it does exist if you install something from GoodLock, for example. So cool, it's getting there, and maybe in an update we could add, something like that. I think that'd be pretty great. Moving on to number 3 then, this is a little bit more of an integration of AI into the entire platform that is your phone. Specifically with Gemini, I mean, I'm happy to see Samsung deviating a little bit from Bixby finally. Like Gemini is kind of the default here, and it integrates a lot more with more apps on your phone, and it kind of works through a central hub. So it doesn't, like apps can't request information from each other, but this can, contact all the different apps. So you could ask it to do stuff like, let me know when the next football game is and add it to my calendar, or navigate me there, or summarize this video, put it in my Samsung Notes, or find a list of 5 restaurants that have Korean barbecue in New York City and send that as a text to my friend and ask them to choose one or something like that. So kind of more complex things that you can use other apps. They kind of integrate together using, with Gemini at the core there. And so I think that's pretty impressive. Unfortunately, while we do have some things like phone transcription for calls, like call notes basically, it can't call for us yet. I really would like to have that. Like there's an app called Simple AI. I've been using it on my iPhone, and you can just ask it to like, hey, call the restaurant and change my reservation. And it's like nobody ever knows it's AI. Like every time they're interacting with it, they think you have an assistant. Like it's really quite impressive. I think if we got like Gemini or Bixby to do that on this phone, I think that'd be so useful in the future. Moving on to number 4 then, this is the personal data engine. So this is intended to make your phone better and more personal the longer you use it by learning your behaviors and essentially recommending routines for you. And this is going to use things from like weather, gallery, health, your wallet, calendar, files, smart things. As long as you allow it to look at all of that. This is done all on device, by the way, according to Samsung. They said it's all on a separate chipset in Galaxy Knox Vault. And like I said, the apps can't contact each other, but this contacts all the apps, kind of learns from you, and then recommends routines to, for example, change things about your smart home when you go to work or when you come back, or you know, whenever your Ring detects that you fall asleep, then turn down the TV, turn off the lights, whatever, stuff like that. So these are routines that a lot of people who make routines probably already set this up. Anyone who has not set up routines in the past, maybe it's just like too much of a barrier. You don't want to have to go through and do all like the tinkering on that and really optimize that. So this kind of just says like, hey, you do this every day, why don't we make it a routine? Or at least that's the idea behind this feature. Once I have it in the studio, we'll see how well that actually works and what routines actually get recommended to me. But the concept, I think, is pretty promising. Now, the price of this phone. Well, fortunately, it actually didn't change from last year, so it's still $1299, which is not a cheap phone by any means, but the S24 Ultra, I would say, was probably the best non-folding Android phone you could buy last year. So this phone, no surprise, it's the same price. I wouldn't expect it to go down, obviously, and I'm happy it didn't go up. But if you want to buy the phone, I'll explain my conclusion in a second, but if you want to buy the phone, don't pay full price. Like, you could if you really wanted to, but I mean, I would recommend taking advantage of some of the programs Samsung has, whether that is a trade-in that could bring your price down a lot. Sometimes they have credits at launch that give you can get like Galaxy Buds or something for free. Sometimes they have a student discount. I think it's like a couple percent. And sometimes they'll just have like free storage upgrades. And whichever one it is, or even a combo of those, I'll have a link down below that has all of those deals. It goes through the Samsung site, so if you want to make sure you're getting the best price, it also supports the channel. It's an affiliate link, so no extra cost to you. You can save the most money and go through that link down below. I'll have it in the description as well as in a pinned comment. All right, so in conclusion, the S24 Ultra last year was probably the best non-folding Android phone of 2024, at least in my opinion. And so it's no surprise that in many ways, the 25 Ultra is kind of familiar. We have a little bit more of a rounded design that unifies the lineup. The new features are very promising. However, keeping things familiar only works if the competition doesn't make any big moves. So we'll see what the Pixel comes out with or other phones on the market and see how they can actually compete with this one this year. If they come out with like Qi 2 wireless charging or something like that, that could really slingshot someone else ahead. But at least right now, I think the feature set on here, the cameras on here, it's a really solid phone. If you want to see a comparison, I definitely will be making comparisons between the 25 Ultra and a ton of other phones, the 25 lineup, the 24 Ultra, the OnePlus 13, anything else you leave in the comments. Let me know what I should compare this to. But really my only complaint is the aesthetic. I think that it looks less premium than the 24 Ultra. Let me know if you agree. By the way, Samsung's launching the 25 and 25 Plus at the same time, and I made videos about all three of them launching at the same time. I'll put those right here, and if you want to pre-order one, please consider using my links in the description down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in those videos.